All right, so get this. We're diving into December 2nd.
December 2nd.
Yeah, and we're using a Wikipedia article in Arabic all about this date.
Interesting.
Yeah. And let me tell you, it's going to be a wild ride through history.
I bet.
We're talking shaping the modern Middle East to, like, the dawn of the nuclear age.
Ow.
Oh, get this. There's even a World Cup connection.
No way.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much history is packed into a single day, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy how all these events, even ones from, like, centuries apart, are connected.
It really is.
Okay, but before we get too deep into it, let's set the scene.
Okay.
December 2nd is the 336th day of the year.
Mm-hmm.
337th on a leap year,
Right.
with only 29 days left until the end of the year.
That's not very many.
I know, right?
You know, that actually sets the tone for this deep dive.
How so?
Well, it's just a good reminder that even with so few days left in the year, history keeps going.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what those last 29 days held for the people who lived through all this stuff.
Definitely.
Okay, enough pondering. Let's
Yeah.
jump into the action.
Let's do it.
All right, so we'll start with 1922 in the Middle East.
Okay.
This is when the Treaty of Uqair was signed.
Treaty of Uqair.
Yeah, and it basically drew the lines in the sand for modern-day Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait.
Wow. So this treaty wasn't just some lines on a map. It was a major power play.
Definitely.
And it had long-lasting consequences.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they tried to settle, like, centuries of tribal disputes with this treaty,
Yeah.
but it also, in some ways, set the stage for future conflicts.
Yeah, it's like one of those ripple effects.
Like zap.
One event, but the impact just keeps spreading.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, speaking of ripples, let's move on to 1925.
Okay.
A year of some pretty contrasting events.
Oh, yeah.
On the one hand, you've got Benito Mussolini tightening his grip on Italy.
Right.
And that was basically the start of fascism in Europe.
Yeah, and that was a pivotal moment for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the rise of fascism had a devastating impact, not just on Italy, but on the entire world. I mean, it laid the groundwork for World War II and just changed the political landscape of Europe for decades.
Totally.
Yeah.
But on that same day, December 2nd, 1925, something completely different was happening on the other side of the Mediterranean.
Really?
Yeah, Egypt and Libya decided to do a little land swap.
A land swap.
Yeah, Jabba Oasis for the Salem region.
Interesting.
I know, right?
That might seem like a pretty minor event compared to Mussolini,
Yeah,
but it shows you how complex things were in that region.
absolutely.
This exchange wasn't just about land.
Right.
It reflected changing allegiances and, like, the struggle for control of resources.
It's all connected.
Exactly.
Okay, so from shaping borders to shifting allegiances, December 2nd was a busy day.
Yeah, even way back then.
But now get ready for a major leap forward,
Okay.
because we're about to enter the nuclear age.
The nuclear age.
Yeah, December 2nd, 1942. Enrico Fermi and his team fire up the world's first nuclear reactor.
Wow.
And this was in Chicago.
In Chicago,
Yeah.
this moment was a complete game changer.
To-
Not just for science, but for the world.
Right.
I mean, suddenly this incredible energy source was possible, but so was its destructive potential.
It's a double-edged sword.
For sure, and Fermi's experiment really paved the way for the Manhattan Project.
Right.
And that led to the development of the atomic bomb.
And that changed everything.
Yeah, it changed warfare and global politics forever.
It's mind-blowing to think about
I
one
think-
experiment and the world is never the same.
Crazy.
Right? And speaking of significant shifts in power, the year 1971 brought us the birth of a nation,
Oh, yeah.
the United Arab Emirates.
The UAE?
It's incredible to think that the UAE, which is a global powerhouse today,
Yeah, it is.
was only unified on December 2nd of that year.
Wow.
And Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan was its first president.
What's so fascinating about the UAE is just how quickly they transformed.
I know, it's amazing.
In just a few decades, it went from a collection of desert settlements to a hub of global commerce, innovation, you name it.
Yeah, and tourism too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a testament to the vision of its leaders and the resilience of its people.
I agree.
And it just shows that even in the 20th century, brand new nations could emerge
Mm-hmm.
and totally reshape the world stage.
They sure did.
Okay, but let's fast forward a few decades to 2010,
Okay.
a year that might sound pretty familiar to soccer fans.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
Well, remember those controversial World Cup selections we talked about?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah. Well, on December 2nd of that year, FIFA awarded the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 World Cup to Qatar.
Oh, right.
And those decisions really sparked a lot of debate.
They did.
There were accusations of corruption within FIFA,
Oh.
concerns about human rights records in both countries,
Mm.
and even questions about like the logistics of holding the tournament in Qatar's summer heat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was a really controversial moment,
It was.
and it showed how sports, politics, and big money are all kind of tangled up.
Yeah, they definitely are.
But those big global events are just one side of the story.
Oh.
Yeah, December 2nd also saw the birth of some really influential individuals.
Like who?
Well, we're talking emperors, artists, pop icons.
Wow. That's quite a range.
Yeah.
It's amazing that one date can have such a diverse group of people born on it.
It is, right?
It makes you think about the power of individuals to shape history.
For sure. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's rewind the clock all the way back to 1825
Okay.
and meet Pedro II of Brazil.
Pedro II.
Yeah, he was the second and final emperor of Brazil.
Wow.
And get this, he ruled for over 58 years.
58 years. That's incredible.
Talk about a legacy, right?
Yeah.
And Pedro II wasn't just some figurehead.
Oh, really?
No, he oversaw a period of huge change in Brazil.
Like what?
He pushed for modernization, championed education and science,
Wow.
and he played the key role in the eventual abolition of slavery in 1888.
So not just a long reign, but a really meaningful one.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what it must have been like to lead a nation for that long.
It would be amazing to know what was going through his head.
I know, right?
Okay, so from the world of emperors, let's jump into the realm of art.
Okay.
Because in 1859, Georges Seurat, the pioneer of pointillism, was born.
Oh, I love Seurat.
Me too.
It's like he figured out how our eyes blend colors together.
Yeah, his paintings are almost like optical illusions.
They are?
Up close, it's just dots, but when you step back, bam, a scene appears.
Right.
But he wasn't just painting pretty pictures.
No, he wasn't.
He was really pushing the boundaries of art and
Yeah.
exploring the science of color and perception.
He was ahead of his time.
He was. And what's really cool is that he wasn't content with just mastering existing techniques.
Yeah.
He innovated and created something totally new.
He was a true visionary.
He was.
And speaking of breaking the mold, we can't forget about Maria Callas.
Maria Callas.
Yeah, born in 1923.
Okay.
This Greek-American soprano became one of the most legendary opera singers of all time.
Oh, for sure.
Her voice,
Right.
her stage presence, her ability to embody a role,
Yeah, she was incredible.
she was a force of nature.
Maria Callas wasn't just technically gifted, though.
Right.
She brought this intensity and emotional depth to opera that just captivated audiences.
Totally. She could make you feel every note,
Exactly.
every word of the performance.
She was a true artist.
Absolutely. Now, from the world of opera, let's step into the realm of high fashion.
Okay.
With Gianni Versace, born in 1946.
Gianni Versace.
Yeah, his name is synonymous with glamour, bold designs.
And that Medusa head logo.
Oh yeah, that logo's everywhere.
Versace completely redefined luxury in the fashion world.
He did.
He wasn't afraid to be daring,
Right.
to blend classical art with modern street style.
Yeah, his designs were unique.
They were, and he dressed celebrities, supermodels, royalty.
He did it all.
And his death in 1997 was a huge shock to the industry.
He left a big mark on the world of fashion.
He did.
Okay. And finally, we arrive at our last stop in this whirlwind tour of December 2nd births.
Right.
1981, the year Britney Spears was born.
Britney Spears.
Love her or hate her, there's no denying the impact she had on pop culture.
That's true. Her story is so complex.
It is.
And it's often overshadowed by all the media attention on her personal life.
Yeah, that's true.
But when you look back, she was a defining figure of the late 90s and early 2000s.
For sure.
I mean, she was the teen pop princess, the
Yeah.
symbol of a generation.
Absolutely.
And her music videos, fashion choices, they influenced so many young people.
It's true, she was a true pop phenomenon.
She was.
But now, get ready for a shift in mood.
Oh, why is that?
Because we're going to explore the other side of December 2nd.
What's that?
The figures who passed away on this date,
Ah, okay.
leaving behind legacies both celebrated and controversial.
It's interesting how even in death, these figures from December 2nd can spark conversation.
Yeah, and challenge our understanding of the past.
They do.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about achievements.
Right.
It's also about grappling with complex legacies and understanding the full impact of individuals,
Yeah.
even those whose actions weren't always positive.
That's true. Sometimes it's those more difficult figures who make us really think critically about the past.
Yeah, you're right. So let's start with a pivotal figure in the Islamic world,
Okay.
Al-Sheikh al-Tusi, who died in 1067.
Al-Sheikh al-Tusi.
Yeah, he was a prominent 12er Shia Muslim scholar,
Okay.
and he founded the Najaf Seminary in Iraq.
The Najaf Seminary.
Yeah, it's a center of Shia learning that's still around today.
Wow. So his influence on Shia Islam is huge then.
It is. He was a prolific writer and theologian,
Right.
and his founding of the Najaf Seminary really solidified its place as a major center of religious authority.
That makes sense.
His teachings and interpretations still shape the beliefs and practices of millions of Shia Muslims.
It's incredible to think about the lasting impact of one scholar.
It really is. But now let's jump to a figure whose legacy is far more contested.
Okay.
Hernán Cortés, the Spanish conquistador who died in 1547.
Hernán Cortés.
His name is forever linked to the conquest of the Aztec Empire.
Right. A major turning point in history.
It was one that totally reshaped the Americas.
Cortés is definitely a figure who sparks intense debate.
Oh, yeah, sure.
On the one hand, he was a brilliant strategist
Mm-hmm.
and a daring explorer
Right.
who led an expedition that changed the course of history. But on the other hand, his conquest of the Aztecs was brutal.
It was.
And it was marked by violence, disease, and the destruction of indigenous cultures.
Yeah, his story makes us confront the dark side of exploration and colonialism.
It does.
And it raises important questions about how we reconcile the achievements of the past with the cost at which they were achieved.
It's a good point. History is rarely black and white.
No, it's not.
It's full of nuance and complexity.
Yeah.
And understanding these figures requires us to look beyond simple narratives of heroes and villains.
You're right. And speaking of complex figures, we can't forget the Marquis de Sade, who died on this date in 1814.
The Marquis de Sade.
Yeah, his name is kind of synonymous with a certain type of, well, let's just say unconventional behavior.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He was a French nobleman and writer
Mm-hmm.
known for exploring themes of sexuality and violence in his works.
Right.
And his name is actually where we get the term sadism.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that
Yeah,
the Marquis de Sade was definitely a controversial figure back then.
he was.
And he still is today.
Yeah.
His writings really pushed the boundaries
They did.
and challenged societal norms
Yeah,
and explored the darker sides of human nature.
for sure. His works were actually banned for many years.
Wow, really?
Yeah, but they've also been studied and analyzed for their psychological and philosophical insights.
That's interesting.
It's a reminder that even the most shocking or controversial figures can contribute to our understanding of ourselves
That's true.
and the world around us.
Yeah. Sometimes it's those who dare to challenge conventions who offer the most thought-provoking perspectives.
Absolutely. Let's move on to our final figure for this part of our December 2nd deep dive,
Okay.
a name that needs no introduction. Pablo Escobar,
Pablo Escobar.
the Colombian drug lord who died in 1993. Right.
He was the leader of the Medellin cartel.
One of the most powerful criminal organizations ever.
Exactly. Escobar's story is a cautionary tale about the drug trade.
Yeah, it is.
He made a fortune through cocaine trafficking, but his reign was marked by violence, corruption, and a complete disregard for human life.
It was a dark time.
It was his death brought an end to his reign of terror.
Thankfully,
But the drug trade still continues,
it does.
and it plagues Colombia and the world.
It's a sad legacy.
It is a legacy of the empire that Escobar built.
That's true.
It's a sobering reminder of the power of these criminal networks
It is.
and the challenges we face in trying to stop them.
Yeah.
But for now, we'll leave our exploration of December 2nd on this kind of somber note.
Okay.
Join us for the next part of our deep dive as we unpack more fascinating events and figures associated with this date.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, it really is amazing how these figures from December 2nd, they just keep sparking conversations.
I know, it's like they're still with us in a way. Right, and it makes you think about how we understand the past.
Yeah, and it's not just about remembering those who have passed away.
No?
It's about appreciating the world that they helped shape
exactly.
and all those events that still resonate today.
Mm-hmm. It's like those echoes you hear in a canyon, you know?
Oh, yeah.
The sound might fade, but it still impacts the space.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of echoes, our next stop takes us back to the world of treaties.
Oh, okay.
But this time, it's a story of unity and progress.
Good.
Remember how we talked about the Treaty of Uquare shaping the Middle East back in 1922?
Yeah, I do.
Well, almost 50 years later, a new chapter unfolds in that same region.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on December 2nd, 1971, we have the official formation of the United Arab Emirates.
The UAE.
It's crazy to think about that, right?
It is.
Going from a treaty that divided land to the creation of a brand new nation.
It really highlights how dynamic history can be.
It does. And what's even more remarkable is how quickly the UAE transformed itself.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
From desert settlements to a global hub of commerce, tourism, innovation.
All in just a few decades.
It's incredible.
It's like someone hit the fast forward button on development.
Right. And it's all thanks to the vision of its leaders,
Yeah, like Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan.
the UAE's first president.
I wonder if they could have even imagined back in 1971 what the UAE would become.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead a few decades to a December 2nd that might be especially memorable for soccer fans.
All right, let's hear it.
Remember those controversial World Cup selections we talked about?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's dive into that a bit deeper.
Okay.
So on December 2nd, 2010, FIFA awarded the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 World Cup to Qatar.
And those decisions caused quite a stir.
They did. It's like FIFA dropped a bomb.
Right. People were excited, but also really concerned.
Exactly. There were a lot of factors at play.
Like what?
Well, first, there were those allegations of corruption within FIFA,
Oh, yeah.
with claims that bribes and backroom deals influenced the voting. And then there were concerns about human rights records in both Russia and Qatar.
Right. People question whether those countries should even be allowed to host.
Exactly, especially given their stance on LGBTQ plus rights and the treatment of migrant workers.
Those are serious concerns.
They are. And then with Qatar specifically, there were those logistical issues.
Oh, yeah, like the heat.
Yeah, holding the World Cup in Qatar's summer heat would have been impossible for the players.
Right.
So they had to move the tournament to November and December.
Which disrupted everything.
It did player schedules, broadcasting rights, fan travel plans.
It was a huge ripple effect.
It was. But this whole controversy really highlights how sports and politics are intertwined.
It does. The World Cup is about way more than just the games.
Yeah, it's a global spectacle.
With billions of dollars at stake.
It's a platform for countries to project their image and influence.
It's true. Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Nope. But looking back at those 2018 and 2022 World Cups, they were actually pretty successful
They were.
in terms of viewership and fan engagement.
People love the World Cup.
They do. It's a global phenomenon.
It really is. Despite all the controversy, people tuned in.
They did. They watched the matches. They celebrated the sport.
It just shows the power of sports to bring people together.
It does. Sometimes the love of the game can overcome even the most heated political debates.
That's a good point. Okay, enough about soccer for now.
Right. Let's shift gears
Okay,
and explore the remarkable individuals who were born on December 2nd.
sounds good.
We're talking emperors,
Yeah.
artists, opera singers, fashion icons.
It's amazing how one date can have such a range of talent.
I know, right? It's
It's-
like December 2nd has some kind of magic touch.
Right, fostering creativity and ambition.
I like that December 2nd, the birthday of greatness.
I like it.
Okay, but let's start with someone whose life was steeped in tradition and responsibility.
Okay.
Pedro II of Brazil, born in 1825.
Pedro II.
He was the second and final emperor of Brazil,
Wow.
and he ruled for over 58 years.
Can you imagine the weight of history on his shoulders?
I know it's mind-boggling to think about.
It is.
Ruling for that long through so much change.
Yeah.
But Pedro II wasn't just watching the world go by.
Oh.
He was shaping Brazil's future.
How so?
He pushed for modernization, championed education and science,
Wow.
and played a key role in ending slavery in 1888.
He sounds like a true reformer.
He was a leader who recognized that things needed to change.
And he wasn't afraid to challenge the way things were.
Exactly. And his commitment to abolishing slavery,
Yeah,
that's a legacy that continues to this day.
it does. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest leaders are the ones who fight for justice.
That's a good point. Okay, let's jump ahead a few decades and trade emperors for art.
All right, I'm ready.
In 1859, Georges Seurat was born,
Georges Seurat.
the man who revolutionized painting with his pointillist technique.
Ah, Seurat, the master of the dots.
I know his work wasn't just about pretty pictures.
It wasn't.
It was about pushing the boundaries of what art could be.
Exactly.
Like he took a painting and exploded it into thousands of tiny dots.
Right, and it's amazing how it all comes together.
It is.
When you step back, you see the whole picture.
And Seurat was a true innovator.
He was.
He wasn't just happy with what already existed.
Nope. He had to create something new.
He studied color theory. He experimented with optics.
He was ahead of his time.
He was. And his work is still inspiring people today.
It is.
You go to any major museum,
Yeah,
you're bound to find a Seurat on display,
that's true.
captivating people with its detail and beauty.
Proof that true innovation transcends time.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And speaking of transcendent talent, we can't forget Maria Callas,
Maria Callas.
born in 1923.
Okay.
This Greek-American soprano.
Yeah.
She was a phenomenon.
She was a
Yes.
true diva.
Maria Callas had this incredible emotional power in her voice.
You could feel every note, every word.
It was like she was living the opera.
Right, not just performing it.
Exactly. And she did all of that while facing some serious challenges in her personal life.
Yeah, she was constantly in the spotlight.
Hmm.
Her relationships were tough, and she had health issues.
But she kept going. She did. He was a true artist.
She was. It's a reminder that even the most iconic figures have their struggles.
That's true. Okay, from opera, let's jump to the world of high fashion.
All right, let's do it.
Gianni Versace, born in 1946.
Gianni Versace.
The man who created one of the most iconic fashion brands in the world.
Versace was a true visionary.
He was.
He took classic themes and made them modern and edgy.
Right? His designs were bold, colorful.
And definitely sexy.
They made a statement.
They did. And his influence went way beyond the runway.
It did. He dressed everyone from rock stars to royalty.
He did. And his death in 1997 was a huge loss for the fashion world.
It was. People felt it deeply.
Versace wasn't just a designer, he was an icon.
He was a symbol of creativity and audacity.
And his legacy lives on.
It does. He changed the face of fashion.
He did.
Okay? And our last stop on this birthday tour is 1981, the year Britney Spears was born.
Britney Spears.
Love her or hate her, you can't deny her impact.
Her story is fascinating.
It is full of highs and lows.
She was a global pop icon.
She
And then faced so much scrutiny.
and personal struggles.
All played out in the public eye.
It must have been overwhelming to have the whole world watching.
It must have. But she's still here.
She is.
Still making music, still performing.
That's true. She's resilient.
She is. And her music still resonates with so many people.
It does. She's a pop culture icon.
She is. It's hard to imagine pop music without her.
It is. Okay, now get ready for a shift in mood.
Why is that?
We're going to explore the other side of December 2nd,
Okay.
the figures who passed away on this date,
Oh, right.
and left behind legacies that are both celebrated and controversial.
It's important to remember that history isn't just about the good stuff.
It's nice.
It's about confronting the difficult parts, too.
Exactly. And recognizing that even those who made significant contributions, they weren't perfect.
They weren't?
They had flaws. They made mistakes.
It's about seeing the whole picture.
The good and the bad. And
That's-
sometimes those more difficult figures force us to think critically about the past.
They do. So who are we talking about?
Well, let's start with a pivotal figure in the Islamic world,
Okay.
Al-Sheikh Al-Tusi, who died in 1067.
Al-Sheikh Al-Tusi.
He was a prominent Twelver Shia Muslim scholar,
Okay.
and he founded the Najaf Seminary in Iraq,
The Najaf Seminary.
which is still a center of Shia learning today.
His influence is immense.
It is. He was a prolific writer and theologian,
Right.
and his founding of the Najaf Seminary really solidified its place as a major center of religious authority.
It's amazing to think about the impact one scholar can have.
It is. His work is still studied centuries later.
It speaks to the power of ideas.
It does, and the importance of education.
Absolutely. Knowledge and intellectual pursuits can change the world.
They can. But let's move on to a figure whose legacy is much more contested.
Okay.
Hernan Cortés, the Spanish conquistador, who
Right.
died in 1547.
Hernan Cortés.
His name is synonymous with the conquest of the Aztec Empire.
Right. A major turning point in history.
It was one that reshaped the Americas.
Cortés is definitely a controversial figure. He was a brilliant strategist and explorer,
Yeah.
but his conquest of the Aztecs was brutal,
It was.
marked by violence, disease, and the destruction of indigenous cultures.
It's a dark chapter in history.
It is. It
Yeah.
makes us confront the horrors of colonialism.
It does. And it raises those questions about how we reconcile the achievements of the past with the costs.
Yeah. It's not easy to think about.
It's not,
Yeah.
but it's a conversation we need to have
We do, if we want to understand our past.
and work towards a better future.
Exactly. Okay, who's next?
Well, let's talk about the Marquis de Sade,
The Marquis de Sade.
who died in 1814.
Okay.
His name is associated with some pretty unconventional behavior.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
He was a French nobleman and writer,
Right.
known for exploring themes of sexuality and violence.
And that's where we get the term sadism.
Exactly. He was a controversial figure back then,
He was.
and he still is today.
His writings really pushed the boundaries.
They did. They challenged societal norms.
And explored the darker sides of human nature.
His works were actually banned for many years,
Wow.
but they've also been studied and analyzed for their psychological and philosophical insights.
It's interesting how even the most shocking figures can contribute to our understanding of ourselves.
It's true. Sometimes it's those who challenge conventions the most who offer the most thought-provoking perspectives.
That's a good point. Okay, who's our final figure?
Our final figure is a name that needs no introduction.
Okay.
Pablo Escobar.
Pablo Escobar,
the Colombian drug lord who died in 1993.
the leader of the Medellin cartel.
One of the most powerful and ruthless criminal organizations ever.
Escobar's story is a warning about the dangers of the drug trade.
It is. He amassed a fortune.
But his reign was brutal.
It was full of violence and corruption.
And a complete disregard for human life.
His death brought an end to his terror.
Thankfully.
But the drug trade continues.
It does.
It plagues Colombia and the world.
It's a sad legacy.
It is a legacy of the empire that Escobar built.
That's true. It's a sobering reminder of the power of these criminal networks.
It is, and the challenges we face in combating them.
Yeah.
But for now, we'll leave our exploration of December 2nd on this somber note.
Okay.
Join us for the final part of our deep dive as we wrap up this exploration of this fascinating date.
Sounds good.
I know it's crazy.
Right.
Right, December 2nd, it's like this one date that's seen it all.
I know we've gone from like shaping entire nations to literally splitting atoms.
And from these huge artistic revolutions to the dark side of like power and wealth.
It's wild.
And to think it all happened on this one day.
What's really hit me during this whole deep dive is how connected it all is. Like
Yeah.
how events from centuries apart can still influence each other.
It's true. History isn't just a bunch of random facts.
It's not. It's like this ongoing conversation.
Exactly. And you know what's even crazier?
Yeah.
Thinking about how what's happening right now, today, on December 2nd, might be seen as a major turning point in the future.
Whoa.
It's mind-blowing, right?
It is. I mean, maybe it's a scientific discovery that changes everything.
Or a political movement that's gaining traction.
Right. Or even just a simple act of kindness that creates a ripple effect.
It really puts things into perspective.
It does. Makes you want to pay more attention to the world around you.
Definitely, like, appreciate those little moments.
Exactly, because we're all part of shaping the future.
Yeah. The choices we make, the things we do, it all adds to the story of humanity.
It does. So what does this all mean for our listener?
Well, hopefully this deep dive into December 2nd has you thinking about the power of history.
And if you're feeling inspired to learn more, we encourage you to keep digging.
There's always more to discover.
Sure is. History is full of surprises.
That's the beauty of it. There are always more connections to make, more stories to uncover.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions.
And who knows, maybe you'll stumble upon the next big December 2nd event.
The one that changes the world.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through time.
It's been fun.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a fascinating corner of history.
Until then, happy exploring.